What's going on, gardeners? It's Tuesday, April 4th, and it is a beautiful spring evening here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. On today's video, I'm going to share with all of you a magic white powder that, when used properly, can double the production of your tomato plants. In fact, this will work on pretty much any vegetable or fruit that forms from a bloom. So even if you're growing other fruiting vegetables or fruit trees, if the result is a fruit that is set from a blossom, this can help dramatically increase your harvests.
If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
And that magic white powder is bone meal. Bone meal has some amazing properties that, when used properly, can dramatically increase the blooms of your plants. When purchasing a bone meal product, it is important that you purchase one that has been ground down into as fine of a powder as possible, and that's because bone meal, like the name says, is made out of bones, and bone takes a very long time to break down in soil if it hasn't been powdered. Now, bone meal has been harder to find as of late on the shelves at stores due to recent fertilizer shortages, so I will make sure to link to a good quality bone meal product in my Amazon storefront underneath the list slow release fertilizers, and I will also place a direct link in the video description. When you purchase fertilizer, every bag of fertilizer will have 3 numbers on the front of the bag separated by 2 dashes. This is called the NPK ratio. The first number is the percentage by weight of nitrogen found in that product. The second number is the percentage of phosphorus by weight found in that product. And the third number is the percentage of potassium found in that product by weight. N, or nitrogen, is responsible for the leafy green growth of plants. When you give plants more nitrogen, they generally grow larger and they will have bigger and darker green leaves. The middle number, phosphorus, is responsible mainly for root development, blooms, and the setting of fruits. That is what we're going to specifically focus on in this video. And the third number is potassium, or K, and that is responsible for the general overall metabolic rate of the plant. It assists in cellular division and the various life processes of plants. While all plants need NP and K to survive, playing with different ratios can have effects on how the plants grow, and boosting certain numbers can have certain effects on those plants. As we previously mentioned, phosphorus is largely responsible for the blooming and the fruit set of the plants, and bone meal is an incredible source of phosphorus. As you can see, this product right here is 17% phosphorus by weight, and it is water insoluble fertilizer, meaning it is from an organic source that is going to take a while to break down in the soil, and that is key for our success. The secret to bone meal's success is the way it slowly decomposes and leaches that phosphorus into your soil in a bioavailable form that your plants can actually use. And it's released in a slow enough fashion that your plants can actually uptake it. It's not this enormous dump that they necessarily can't all uptake at once. That trickle feeding effect, that is a constant, slow released supply of phosphorus in forms that they love, is what helps boost that blooming so much, and it keeps your plants super healthy. And in order to be successful using bone meal, I'm going to show you exactly how to apply it. However, before I do that, I want to address 2 common counter arguments to why some people choose not to use bone meal. The first argument that I hear all the time about external phosphorus fertilizing is that it's pointless to do that unless you get a soil test, because your soil may have an overabundance of phosphorus. I've never liked that argument because I think that soil tests are mostly useless for the backyard gardener. In order for soil tests to actually be accurate, you have to take them from multiple points all around your yard and garden, because they're all going to vary, and you need to do them about every 2 years. And that's because your vegetable garden is not sustainable, and it takes far more from the soil than you can put back in. So you may have an overabundance of phosphorus in fresh soil, but after a couple seasons, all of that phosphorus can be depleted. Doing that just doesn't make sense for the backyard gardener. Who is going to take 3 or 4 soil tests every other year to check their phosphorus levels? Unless you do this for a living on a large commercial farm and it's in your best interest to constantly monitor soil levels of various nutrients, it just doesn't make sense. And the best way we should do this is through trial and error and wisdom that we gain over the years. And besides, it's misleading because not all sources of phosphorus are bioavailable by your plants. Just because there's phosphorus in your soil doesn't mean it's in a form your plant can process. They can be locked up in various compounds that are insoluble that your plant plants can't actually use. So you can actually have a lot of phosphorus in your soil and your plants can't use any of it. And the second argument that I hear all the time is that plants just don't need that much phosphorus to survive. And I've never understood that argument because there's no base level of phosphorus for surviving. Can an Olympic athlete survive on the same amount of nutrients as somebody that works at a desk all day? Of course not. Different levels of nutrients can allow you to ascend to different levels of performance. So it makes no sense to say, well, this is enough phosphorus for the plant to survive. I don't want my plant to just survive and limp along. I want it to thrive. I want to grow Olympic athlete plants that produce huge amounts of food and I get great yields per square foot. I don't want them to be mediocre. And if all you're going to give them is just enough to survive, all they're going to be is mediocre. So in this video, we are going to give the plants more than they need to survive. They're going to get what they need to be exceptional. So now that I've explained to you why bone meal is so great for flowering and fruiting, we are going to use it to plant this amazing legend tomato plant, which is an early season determinate variety. But remember, you can use this for more than just tomato plants. You can use this for cucumber plants, pepper plants, squash plants, pretty much anything that flowers and fruits. You can even use it for all of your fruit trees, and I always do when I plant my fruit trees every season. Applying bone meal to your plants is easy. First, take a small amount of bone meal and spread it onto a hard surface like a plate or a coffee table. Then take a credit card to cut it into lines. Then get yourself a straw. Come on, grow bigger, like him. Pretend it's the 80s. Once you've selected where you're going to plant your tomato plant, the first thing you'll want to do is remove any mulch layer that you have until your underlying soil is exposed. Tomatoes have a really cool ability where they can actually grow roots all along the stems. So we actually want to make sure that we dig our tomato holes deeper than we otherwise would for most vegetables because we want to bury a significant portion of the stem because they will root along the stems and that will lead to a larger root system. So I pre-dug my hole to make sure it's plenty deep. The next thing we're going to do is fertilize with an organic all-purpose fertilizer. This is a 533 all-purpose fertilizer that I just picked up on the shelf when it was on clearance back in the fall. Now, it is true that one of the ingredients in this fertilizer is bone meal. However, I find it not to be enough. The plants benefit substantially from additional bone meal, especially that micronized powdered bone meal, because it breaks down a lot more quickly. So we're going to combine the two, which is going to enhance the plants. So we're going to place 2 tablespoons of the all-purpose fertilizer down in our planting hole and lightly mix it in. Then we are going to carefully remove our tomato from the pot. And we are going to dust that root ball with the bone meal. And remember, we can do this because this is an organic fertilizer that has to be broken down by the soil microbiology. So we don't have to worry about that burning the plant. We will then cover the top of the root ball with the bone meal and then dust all of the sides of the planting hole. Then we will backfill it halfway. Press the soil down, drop a little bit more bone meal around the plant, and then fill it with the rest of the soil. And with these organic fertilizers, it's very important that you don't just place it around the top of the plant. It has to be worked into the soil because it's the soil microbiology that is going to break it down. So if you just sprinkle it on top and you do nothing with it and you don't mix it in, it could wash away by the rain or it can break down very slowly. We're going to give it just a little bit more organic fertilizer right on top. And then we are going to reapply our mulch around the plant. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to water in my transplants with a little bit of 511 Alaska fish fertilizer. I think this stuff is great for stopping transplant shock as well as helping the plants grow more quickly. And I only give about a small glug, like 2 or 3 tablespoons in a 1.5 gallon watering can. So we're going to fill up the watering can, mix it around, and then we will saturate our plants that we just planted. And finally, let's discuss application rates and frequency. When I give my plants bone meal, I like to use one of these green Miracle-Gro scoopers that come with the water-soluble fertilizers. They're 1.5 tablespoons, and I like to split this between 2 plants. So I give each plant 3/4 tablespoon of bone meal every 2 weeks, and I like to scratch that fertilizer into the top inch of the soil. It has to be worked into the soil to break down appropriately. How many applications and how late into the season you will apply your bone meal will depend on what you are growing. Those tomato plants I just planted in this video are determinate tomatoes, so they are going to grow to a predetermined height and stop, and they're going to produce most of their blooms and flowers at once. And once they reach that predetermined height, they're not going to make any more blooms. So at that point, there's no point in me fertilizing those tomato plants with this bone meal any longer, because they're not going to produce any more blooms, and I'm just going to be flushing my money down the toilet if I keep giving them bloom booster when they're not going to bloom anymore. Now, if you're growing something like an indeterminate plant that will grow all the way until frost and produce for you late into the year, you're going to have to work backwards from your first frost date to really figure out when you're going to discontinue use. Now, if your first frost date is October 15th and you're growing a beefsteak tomato that takes 2 months for a bloom to turn into a fruit and mature and ripen for you, you're probably going to want to discontinue use sometime in early August, because any of the blooms that form in mid to late August probably won't mature for you, so those blooms are basically useless, and you're putting all this energy and fertilizer into something that will never turn into ripe fruit for you. But an exception to that rule may be cherry tomatoes, because they can form fruits and mature very quickly. So something like a cherry tomato can benefit from fertilizing late into the year, and a lot of this is trial and error, and you will perfect the craft over years. And that right there is a crash course on why I use bone meal in my garden and how to use it. I swear by this stuff. I've been using it for many years, and I think if you give it an honest try in your garden and you observe the results, I think you'll be pretty impressed. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. If you're curious about anything I used in this video or that I use in my garden in general, they're all linked in my Amazon storefront link down in the video description. So expand the video description, click on the Amazon link, and everything I use in real life is right there. While you're there, check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. If you have any questions about this video, ask them down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
Well, Dale, Dad is making you special breakfast this morning. An 8-egg omelet. And of course, we have to put a little bit of cheese in there. Well, Dale, I've never flipped an 8-egg omelet before, so it's not the best looking thing in the world. So we have 5 eggs for Dad, and we have 3 eggs for Dale. And here is Dale's breakfast. He's so excited. He's going crazy. Okay. Tell me how you like it, buddy. What do you think? Scale of 1 to 10. Oh, that looks like a solid 9-1. He's pretty happy.